This is Chris Lee at Southeastern14.com, here to walk you through SEC football power rankings after 6 weeks of play. At the top, we start with Georgia, which beat Auburn on the road. The Bulldogs giving up just 5.5 points a game through half a season. That's incredible. Just 3.6 yards per play. It's just crazy how good the Bulldog defense is, but I think we know that. So let's move on to team number 2. That is the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama stays at number 2 this week despite a loss at Texas A&M, a very talented Texas A&M team that we'll get into later. But right now, I know Kentucky, the only unbeaten team in the league, but I think if you match those teams head up, most people would pick Alabama, and that's why I'm going to go with the Tide at number 2. Number 3, and this is where it gets really tough, sorting through the next 5 or so. I've got Ole Miss next at 3, and I'm not sure that Ole Miss is the league's third best team. I tend to think that might be Florida. That's what the computers tend to think. But the Rebels are 4-1 with the loss to Alabama and, of course, a big win over Arkansas, which I've slotted just behind the Rebels. I mean, that was a road loss for Arkansas. That was a 1-point game that could have gone to overtime had Arkansas chosen a point after. So I think you've got to rank those two teams at this point as being pretty even. Moving on from there, I've got Kentucky at 5, and I know the Cats are the only unbeaten team in the league outside of outside of Georgia. But right now, I'm just not convinced Kentucky is the second best team in the league. Ole Miss and Arkansas, I think, are a little bit better. It probably had better wins so far. At least Arkansas has. And then, of course, Ole Miss just beat Arkansas. So that's how I arrived at the pecking order 4-3, 4-5. I've got Florida number 6. Now, I think the Gators are better than that, but they've lost 2 games. And so at this point, you've got to maybe defer a little bit to the teams in front of them for the win-loss record, but I think the Gators are going to move up from here before the end of the season. 7, I've got Texas A&M, and it's hard to know what to do with the Aggies. You don't want to overreact to a win against Alabama because, look, this is the same A&M team that struggled to beat Colorado, which is awful. So I don't want to ever go overboard and put too much stock into the last game played, so that's why I've got A&M, which is 4-2, and really hasn't done a whole lot outside of beating Alabama at 7. 8, 9, 10, you can almost argue any order with these teams. I've got Auburn at 8, and I think that's the right call, followed by Tennessee and Mississippi State. Tennessee has really looked good lately, but the Vols are about to hit a new level with the schedule, so we'll know more about them there. Mississippi State, a team that's just kind of hard to figure from week to week. Of course, A&M's loss or win over Mississippi State's win over A&M looks a little bit better as we go. But State's also lost to Memphis, also almost got beat by Louisiana Tech, and I think you have to lean on the body of the work for the season. Anyway, we're going to figure these things out because the games are a lot tougher from here on out. But Auburn, Tennessee, Mississippi State, you could probably argue in a lot of orders. I think State with the situation with the bad loss to Memphis, or not maybe bad loss, but not a great loss to Memphis. I think that's why I've got State at 10, even though it did beat A&M. It may not be the right call, but it's pretty interesting in the league. Then I've got the bottom 4. I've got in this order LSU, Missouri, South Carolina, Vandy. LSU, my goodness, that team just seems to be going nowhere at this point. I know LSU is very talented, certainly more talented than Missouri, South Carolina, and Vandy. Missouri I've got at 12, or really I've got at 13 behind South Carolina. That's a defensive call. Missouri is giving up 37.5 points a game. And I know Carolina's defense didn't look great this weekend against Tennessee, but I think it's better. Missouri's offense is better than Carolina's. And, of course, we'll settle this in a few weeks when those teams play. But right now I'm going to go in the order of LSU at 11, South Carolina 12, Missouri 13, and then we get to Vandy at 14. My goodness, the Commodores losing games by an average of 23 points, have not scored in 2 games of SEC play so far, gaining just 4.3 yards per play. Clearly, I think Vanderbilt is a distant 14 behind the rest of the league. But it's going to be an interesting season. Can't wait to see how this pans out because, frankly, I'm not super confident in my order from 3 to 10. You could see Mississippi State rise way up. You could see Ole Miss potentially fall. Kentucky 6-0, but it's going to get tougher starting with Georgia this weekend. Auburn, who knows where that season's going. Tennessee, who knows how the Vols are going to react as the schedule gets tougher. But anyway, I'm Chris Lee at the 14. Thank you for watching our Power Rankings video. after week 6. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch our content. We preview every game every week. Those are pretty interesting. They give you some insight on what's ahead. So be sure to subscribe to our channel at the 14. Check out our work at southeastern14.com too.